All right, welcome everybody to the post-mortem edition of Under the Dome. After that hatchet job the Buccaneers did to us on Sunday, it was one of those kind of games where we had it coming. We had it coming. I said, I think it was either on this show or maybe Bob's show, the Bayou Blitz, when they asked, how do you see us losing that game? One of the things I said was we lose a turnover battle. If we lose a turnover battle and we went 0 for 2, and one of them was a fumble for a score, we're going to lose. And we lost by 8. So it was one of those days for the Saints defense. So I'm wearing camo today. Camo to represent, the fact that we got to hide our faces in shame. But anyway, I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with my partner, Sean Williams, tonight. How you doing tonight, Sean?
Well, I'm wearing black. Does that tell you anything?
Yeah.
I've told a lot of people, I'm not mad. I'm incredibly disappointed. And I'm disappointed on a number of levels, actually. Of course, we're going to get into all of this in a minute when we break down the game. I really thought that this was going to go a whole lot differently. I give full credit to Tampa Bay. They had a game plan. They came in and they executed it flawlessly. And yet and still, as badly as this team played on Sunday, with this game was decided at the 2-minute warning when Fitzmagic. It sounds like there should be like a ballet flourish when you say that. Until Fitzpatrick scrambled for 15 on a 3rd and 14, this game was still hanging in the balance. But, like I said, we're going to get into all of that in a moment. I want to pay the bills real quick, say thanks to Fan First, I drew a blank there, Fan First Productions for sponsoring us. Invite everyone to go to iTunes and YouTube and subscribe to our show. Really quick, I want to thank a few folks that we forgot, or that we were in such a rush that we didn't have the opportunity to thank on our season kickoff show Saturday night. We want to obviously thank once again Jolan Dunbar for coming on. Fantastic guest, fantastic interview. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. Jolan was a great guest and gave some incredible insight to Alan and I on Saturday night. I want to thank John Pinto. He is the straw that stirs the drink for Under the Dome. Make no mistake about it. Without John doing what he does, this show doesn't get very far off the ground. And Joel Smith, thank you for all you do to help us promote and everything. We want to thank everyone that participated in the show. Tony Dunn, the big guy, Gene Thomas, Josh Schultz, who's in mourning today. Sorry, Josh. And who am I forgetting? There was one more, wasn't there?
Well, you want to thank the Tampa Bay people?
Well, that was Gene.
Oh, okay. You got Gene? Okay, yeah. Then you got everybody. Tony Dunn, Josh, Gene, Bob, Kyle.
Bob and Kyle. That's who I was forgetting. Well, I hope they're not tuned in yet, because I'll never hear the end of that. Anyway, especially Bob and Kyle from the Saints News Network and the Bayou Blitz, man. That meant so much to me for those guys to be a part of our season kickoff show. I can't begin to explain to you guys just what that meant to me. And thank you all so much for being a part of what we did. We got a big announcement tonight. Late breaking news for Under the Dome, not for the Saints, but we have a very special guest coming next week. I think Alan is really looking forward to this interview. You want to tell him who we got, man?
We have Mr. Quinn Early, number 89 for the Saints. He joined the Saints in what, 1990, 1991, and played until 1996 when the Saints foolishly let him go. But he was an outstanding number 2 receiver. We searched forever for a number 2 receiver. He was an outstanding receiver for the Saints during the tail end of the Dome Patrol years, and was a great receiver with Jim Everett at the controls. So yeah, Quinn Early, former San Diego Charger and New Orleans Saint. Looking forward to talking to him.
And New York Jet, and I think Cincinnati Bengal.
Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills. They're all the same.
He went to Buffalo. He went to Buffalo after he left the Saints.
And he's now a martial arts instructor.
Yes, he is. And I believe he was also a stuntman for a little while in movies. I have to go back and double check. But I think I think there's a couple movies he's actually in. And
wow.
I have a friend who is a stuntman, so that's how I know about this. But yeah, Quinn Early, I believe, was a stuntman for a little while. So we'll talk about all that when he.
I'm assuming he's a little larger than his. It was either 6 foot or 6'2", 188 listed weight in the program. I assume he added some bulk to that before his stuntman days.
Depending on the stunts you do, you don't have to add that much. Yeah, he played. I'm sorry, he played for the Saints from 91.
He spent his longest tenure with the Saints. He started with the Chargers, then us, then Buffalo, and then the Jets.
Right.
I did do a little bit of research today on it. But we're really looking forward to Quinn being on with us next Tuesday night. And I thank him very much for accepting our invitation in a timely fashion. Usually I invite someone and it's like a month later, and I either do or don't get a response, and he responded almost immediately. And if you want to take another walk down memory lane with Quinn Early, he will be appearing with Bob on the Bayou Blitz tomorrow night as well at 8 p.m. start time.
Here we go. Real quick. There's a whole list of his stunt films. He was a stunt man, but he was in movies. The American Ultra, which I'm not familiar with. Den of Thieves, I'm not familiar with that one. The Nice Guys, and also Olympus Has Fallen. So that's the only one I've actually heard of.
Those were all action movies.
Yes.
Wow, I'm impressed.
But he's done quite a few stunts. He's been in SWAT. He did the stunts for that.
That's a new TV series on Fox.
The Last Ship, Blackish,
Anthony Anderson.
Yeah, SEAL Team.
I think that's CBS.
Grimm. It was
that's on NBC. That's
kind
of like the Grimm brothers.
Yeah. So he's been in quite a few things. Yeah, and he's also even done some acting. He's done a little bit of acting in some films too.
Wow.
But he's primarily been stuntman.
Cool.
So there you go. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I had read that about him. I've got a friend that's a stuntman, so I give him some crap every so often when he posts stuff on social media.
I Googled him to do a little bit of research earlier this afternoon, and the first picture that I saw was him standing, looked like on a beach with his. He looked like he was fixing to cave in the side of a guy's head, and I thought maybe there's two Quinn Earlys. But no, it was actually him.
Yep.
Um, before we go any further, we have never done an Under the Dome broadcast actually on September the 11th, and I feel that it's necessary to acknowledge the date. Because, as we all know, as the old saying goes, those who do not learn from their past are condemned to repeat it. Um, I remember September the 11th, 2001, vividly, almost as if it happened yesterday. Much like people of the generation speak of the JFK assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination. I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing, uh, the feelings inside of me as this the bits and pieces of the news started to come in. I was driving home from work in a graveyard shift, listening to John Boy and Billy, uh, and there was a report came in that someone had hit the World Trade Center in an airplane, and I got to thinking, I said, something's not right about that. Well, I'm an hour and a half, hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes, whatever it was, away from my destination. So there was plenty of time for this story to develop on the way. And the closer that I get to my destination, the pieces of the story began to come together. And it became increasingly clear that something was terribly, terribly wrong with this. And about 2 minutes before I reached my destination, the first building fell. Um, and then, of course, I went inside and woke my wife and my son up, and I said, "You got to see this." She turned over, and as she turned over and we turned the TV on, the second building fell, and you know, the world that we live in will never be the same again, based a lot on what happened on September the 11th, 2001. And it doesn't need to be the same anymore, because the world that we did live in prior to that day is not the world that we're living in now. I will never infringe on anyone's religious beliefs or anything like that. That's that's not the platform that I'm on here. We love the black and gold. I mean, we can talk trash about the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Carolina Panthers and whoever the opponent is. This goes beyond that. Um, my heart, that that was the, I have ever since that day. I have told my children. I have a 6-year-old son, a 9-year-old daughter, and a son that is about to turn 21, and they have all been exposed to what happened on 9/11. I want them to be aware. I don't want them to go somewhere and be scared, but I want them to know that this is what happened. That will, in my mind, 9/11 will always be the defining moment of our generation. And I got a little verbose on that, but thoughts and prayers to all of those that lost loved ones, to those first responders that showed up, and especially the ones that paid the ultimate price so that others would have the opportunity to see the next day. Uh, the people that went down to Ground Zero that helped out. Uh, To all those people, God bless you. Alan?
Well, I don't know if I can top that. Basically, my thoughts about 9/11. It was a Tuesday, just like today. It was a pretty day. I remember that. Um, we had just moved back to New Orleans from Lafayette about 3 months before that. So I'm dropping my youngest, who was not even a year old yet. She'd be a year in end of this month, off at a little Baptist church daycare center we used to go to back then. I dropped her off, and so I did not hear the first plane hit. Um, when I got back in the car and drove to work, someone called up the morning show I was listening to. Someone called up the morning show and said that they just watched a plane hit the World Trade Center. And my first thought was, this has got to be somebody who blacked out. This has got to be some kind of, I don't know, heart attack, whatever. It never occurred to me that it was a commercial airliner that hit the building. Keep in mind now, 6 months, maybe a year before that, was that story about the little one-man Cessna that crashed on the White House lawn. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I do.
I do. Yeah,
And
I
that
do.
we found out later that was a test. They were going to see how close they could get to the White House. And I'm going to remind everybody about that in just a second. But that's what that was. That was a test to see how close they could get to the White House before a fighter plane would intercept them. And yeah, they crashed on the lawn on purpose. So I get to work. I go start doing what I did. And a guy comes in and says, I just watched a commercial airliner crash into the World Trade Center. And I said, yeah, I heard about this on the radio. He's like, no, a second one. So at that point, now we're starting to wonder what's going on. So we put on the radio, and then they talk about something happening at the Pentagon. And now it's you're starting to see how everything's coming together. And United 93 is happening about this time. So we go into the conference room and that's the only place we had a TV, put that on. And here's the thing I remember. That I saw the replay of the second plane hitting the building. All the phones in our office, which on a Tuesday morning are ringing off the hook, they all stop. Dead stop. Silent. The fax machine, I know I'm dating myself, but we actually still had a fax machine that we used. Because this is 2001 now. Keep in mind, the iPhone's doesn't exist yet. Email
Facebook
systems.
Didn't exist.
Facebook didn't exist.
Twitter.
MySpace didn't exist. Twitter
Instagram.
didn't exist. Instagram didn't exist. This is the dark ages. People, you were still using analog cell phones. Texting wasn't common. And all that stuff. So, I'm getting faxes, okay? The fax machine's not going off anymore. All that stuff everyone is just riveted to their TVs from that point on. And yes, I saw both buildings fall. And yes, I saw, the people jumping out of the windows and all these other things. And then we heard the story of United 93. I've seen the film United 93. And the phrase, let's roll, still sticks with me. Because I would have been, if I was on that plane, I hate saying this, but I mean, if I was one of those people on the plane, I would have probably been like that guy, let's roll. Because you feel like, and that's the people I think most about, they knew it was going to happen. That was the plane that was heading for the White House, and it crashed in a Pennsylvania field. So I on 9/11, I always think of those people most of all. Not to say that the people who died in the World Trade Center, the 3,000 people who died, talking about the first responders and everybody else, not to say they're less important, but when you know that you are probably going to die, and your last heroic act is to try and stop more death, you sacrifice yourself for that. Those are the people that really, really stick in my mind most when I think about that time, when I think about 9/11. In the days afterwards, with when they shut the planes, the airports down and everything, the eerie quiet. I live in an area in New Orleans or the suburbs of New Orleans where it's a pretty common flight corridor. So I hear planes passing overhead pretty regularly. You don't hear them. Nothing. It was silent. The only time I heard a plane fly over was a fighter jet from Belle Chase, the Naval Air Station there in Belle Chase. Those were the only planes I heard for about a month. It seemed like in the aftermath, and the only other time I can remember it being that quiet, whenever I was outside, was the Labor Day weekend. I came home after Katrina to start cleaning up, and there were no birds chirping. There was just this eerie quiet everywhere. The neighborhood was empty. You know, it's that those 2 days really stick out to me because I remember the quiet just being so unnerving to me. So yeah, when I think about 9/11, I think about what happened 4 months earlier. I'm sorry, almost a year earlier. Sorry, in 2000 when we went to my brother's wedding, and he lived in Pennsylvania, just outside of where Penn State is, in a town called Bellefonte. And the only way you could get there was you flew in a plane to Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, then got on a little pond jumper and flew to Bellefonte. So in that case, we walked off our plane, our luggage in our hand, walked across the tarmac, and got on what I used to call the half a plane. You know, I used to fly a lot back then. You've got 2 rows or 3 rows on one side, and the other side of the plane, you got 1 row, and the roof curves right here on you. So it looks like a half a plane you're in. But that was the kind of plane we got in, a little United airliner that just basically went up and came right back down in a little town, you know, because it was a little small regional airport. It wasn't big at all. But like you said, that world is gone. You can't do that anymore. You can't just go walk out to the tarmac, get on a little plane and fly wherever. They don't let you do that. You have to go through security. You can't carry your luggage like that on board. You know, you have to screen everything now. All that's different. You know,
I refuse to fly now.
Well,
I want
to go fly a lot.
I want to go to Pearl Harbor, but you know, it's going to be a lot of rowing going with that. But no, it's there's so many things about that day that I could talk about, but that'll just eat up more of our limited time.
You're right. You're right. And it's been 17 years. And I'm sure everybody's got their own stories about it. And like
I never get tired of talking about it because, like I said a minute ago, I firmly and sincerely and deeply believe that, you know, if we don't talk about it, if we don't relive it, if we don't remember it every 365 days, if we just forget that it ever happened, then it's going to happen again.
Well, you know, I'm not going to get political on the show, but things have changed, obviously, since 2001. Attitudes about things have changed. Things that I knew was going to happen, but I'm still surprised it is happening. And yeah, let's just leave it at there are people who have a very different view of what led to 9/11, and as a result, I feel like they're putting us right back into danger of another 9/11 happening, because it's a very naive and foolish perspective to have. Like I always say, if you watch any science fiction movie, those are the people that always end up getting killed first. Because they have very foolish and naive attitudes regarding
It's called thinning the herd.
I know. But they end up taking a lot of people with them because they're shocked that evil is real and it does exist, and that there are people with evil intentions. And when you assume that everyone thinks exactly the same way you do and has the same values and viewpoint on life and doesn't hate you because of the color of your skin or the religion you believe in, or that you dress a certain way or whatever, you leave yourself. I'm sorry. We'll just leave it at that. You will be in for a shock.
Yes,
you'll be in for a shock, and you won't.
There is none so blind as those who will not see.
Yeah. You will find out. You will be wondering as they are killing you, why are they killing me? Why do they hate me?
And I can't believe this is actually happening.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move.
Yeah, let's talk about something less, even more depressing. The outcome of the Saints-Bucs game. Listen,
do you want to tell them? Do you want to tell them what the title of the topic on the outline is, or should we keep that between us?
No, I mean, it's bad enough. We don't need to go that far.
Okay, well,
it's just like. But I mean, I'm telling you, it was just like last year with the Minnesota game. We came in very expecting to be a better team. And I have to admit it, I do it to myself too. I get psyched up enough thinking that they're going to come out and do what they did at the end of last year. And they didn't. The offense was fine, except for the lack of a running game. You watch that game, that first possession, and we're just going through Tampa Bay's defense like it's not even there. I even said to my wife at one point, I said, Tampa spent all this money and all this time getting these players in to upgrade the defense. And Jason Pierre-Paul, did he make a tackle in that game? What did he do?
He went out in like the first couple of series, didn't he? Did he ever come back in?
I don't know. I just don't recall his name being said. I know Gerald McCoy got a sack, and that was really on Laribas, who got beat. But as far for a Saints team that was pretty much one-dimensional from about midpoint of the second quarter on, Breeze was untouched, and Michael Thomas is still running free in that secondary. And Alvin Kamara, if he got in space, he was getting a lot of yards. So it was a Breeze, Kamara, Thomas show. It was a defense that was horrible. And I was shocked at how the Buccaneers offensive line was able to dominate our front four. That was probably the most surprising thing of the whole game. And I'm not surprised Fitzpatrick did what he did, given the time he had. And the other thing I was surprised about was how disorganized the secondary looked, and how Marshawn Lattimore reminded me of Johnny Poe. And I say that because Johnny Poe in 1983 had 7 interceptions and looked like a good, solid cornerback. And The following year, in the next 2 years, actually, following year, he played badly. In 85 and 86, he's bench worthy, and the fans are chanting, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Johnny Poe's got to go." Um, it was startling to see Lattimore have a receiver run right past him, and he is tripping over his own feet, trying to keep up with him, and he can't stop him. Mike Evans had a field day against him. And yeah, we can point to Ken Crawley getting chewed up by Deshaun Jackson. But you know what? If Lattimore can hold his own against Evans, then you can roll the coverage to help out Crawley over the top. But they couldn't do that because they all play badly. They pat in the first play for that first drive for Tampa. It looks like Patrick Robertson passes, tries to call the defense out, passes Jackson off to the safety. Either Von Bell didn't hear him or Marcus Williams didn't hear him, either one of those safeties, and they just let him run free. And here goes Jackson untouched right through the middle of the secondary, because where we were sitting up in the terrace level, and I'm looking down, and that play was coming towards me. Let Jackson run free, and I see Marcus Williams now having to run the trail position behind him because there's nobody back there. Nobody. And it didn't just happen once. It happened several times in the game. And it didn't matter if Coleman went in there or if Von Bell was in there. It just didn't matter. That was shocking to me, how badly this defense looked when it counted. This is like how they looked in the preseason and, the first few possessions. And that's very disturbing.
Well, I think back, and there's two things that strike me immediately. And this is what I told you off air. The first thought that kept going through my mind before we even reached halftime was, this is what it looks like when you sit back and you believe all the BS that people are saying about you instead of trying to get out there and earn the accolades and be worthy of this being said about you. Strictly 100% overconfidence. That's exactly what it looked like. Now, at the same time, I had a somewhat of an alternative viewpoint pointed out to me this morning. Think about something. A little over, well, maybe not quite a year ago, Tampa Bay is visiting the New Orleans Saints. Unfortunately, probably the most memorable moment of that ball game is either Jameis Winston licking his fingers, and either that or the fact that Jameis Winston tried to find the off button on the back of Marshawn Lattimore's helmet and poked him in the back of the head, and then Mike Evans cheap shots him in the back, the whole 9 yards, and Devontae Harris made the best hit of the season for him when he came off of the sidelines across the field, and he hit Mike Evans. Anyway, and then came the much ballyhooed handshake between Dirk Cutter and Sean Payton, where Sean Payton basically Ric Flaired him and popped him in the chest and popped him in the chest and popped him in the chest and all this and all that. I can guarantee you guys that if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't win another game, they had this game in the Superdome marked on their calendars. They were waiting for this one. They have game planned for it. They knew everything that Dennis Allen was going to throw at them on defense, and they prepared Fitzpatrick for dealing with that. I give, as I said earlier, I give total and complete credit to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They put together a fantastic game plan, executed it flawlessly. And I do believe that the Saints were not ready to play, especially on defense. Now, the offense, they didn't set the world on fire in the first half. In the second half, they kind of came into their own. They got the job done. But I mean, you had Drew Brees against rookies in secondary. And I just read just before we went on the air that the guy that scooped up the fumble by Forrest Gump's nephew, whatever his name is,
Mike Lessie.
Yeah, Gillisley.
Gillisley, thank you. I want to give a more French pronunciation. Well, if
is
you
he
think
at the
about
bus station yet? By the way,
he probably will be tomorrow. I have a feeling he'll be gone, and Boston Scott will be pulled up off the practice squad.
Jonathan Williams is likely to be close behind.
Probably, he probably has one more game left. And
I'm gonna tell you, I do not believe in this. I don't have the little thing where I can mash the button every time I want to say an ugly word, so I'm gonna try to censor myself. I never have believed in that BS about we can't hand the ball off to Alvin Kamara again because he's had X amount of touches and this is going to affect him in November and December. The one thing about the entire broadcast that stood out in my mind more than anything else was I want to say it was Harlan and Daryl Johnston that did the play-by-play and color, respectively. Daryl Johnston said something that has just played over and over in my mind ever since. He said that you can't win the Lombardi Trophy in September, but you can sure lose it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Part of what, and I've tried selling this to people before, and I had a guy tell me that I was crazy for saying this. But I said Mark Ingram helped make Alvin Kamara a better running back, allowed him to be as good as he was. And the guy thought I was crazy,
Not at all.
You're seeing what happens without a Mark Ingram there. You have two backs who can both do the same thing, but do them differently. And a defense has to account for them. If you've got Ingram in the backfield and Kamara comes out and splits out and goes out wide, the Saints can still pass and the Saints can still run out of that formation. If you've got a Jonathan Williams and you have to account for Ingram, but I'm saying if you have a Jonathan Williams or a Mike Gillespie or whoever the running back may be back there, you don't feel like you have to account for that guy. You kind of feel like one man, a linebacker, could probably handle that back and bring him down pretty easily. Whereas you saw Ingram in the last 2 years, when he gets to that second level, he's not going down pretty easily. He's getting a lot of yards. So you can kind of spread the defense out because they have to account for Kamara. But also when you spread that defense out, now you've got a one-on-one matchup with Ingram where you're very afraid that Ingram's going to get a lot of yards if he gets past your first or second line of defense. And now your defensive backs who are turned around chasing receivers have to go back and watch this. So that's the kind of stuff that Ingram offered the Saints that you don't get with these other running backs. So that's the little things that affect your offense. And that's why I put my good, bad, and the ugly, the bad being the running game. because nobody stood up and took that role. Nobody came in when Breeze handed the ball off to somebody not named Alvin Kamara and busted a 10 or 12-yard run. So now you have to account for that guy. Now you suddenly have to pay attention when he's back there. And, of course, the defense played it so badly that we had to abandon the run and we went into a pass on every down kind of game. But that's what bothered me the most about that whole first half. And then once Gillespie fumbles the ball, and it becomes not a pick six, but basically a fumble return for scoop and score. That's when the game got out of hand. To me, that was the turning point of the ball game because we were matching them score for score each time. Now they're up by 11, and they score again. So now they're up. It was 31-24 at halftime. I believe that's what the score was.
Something like that.
Yeah, 31-24. Whereas before it could have been 21-24, 24 all, something like that, if you don't turn the ball over. And then the second turnover, of course, where Michael Thomas, shades of Denver, which if he fumbles, if that's his only fumble for another year, I can live with that.
Sure.
I mean, he's that good. I'm sure he punished himself for that fumble. But, I mean, Tampa was able to score up that possession too. So, you're down 24 and you come roaring back. And you're really, like you said, we said off air, you're a 3rd and 15 away from getting the ball back one more time. And I have no doubt, given how badly Breeze was chewing up that Bucs defense, that they went for 2 twice and got it both times, that we're going to score again, go for 2, get it. It's 48 all and going to overtime. So, I mean, that's the plus side. If you want to have a positive side about this game, that we are, as long as Drew Brees is playing at the level he's playing, we always have a chance to win, even if our defense looks like complete garbage. The problem is we don't want to just win. We don't want to just go 7-9 or 8-8, 9-7. We want to go better than that and win the division and go to the playoffs, get that number 1 or number 2 seed, and get to the title game and so on. You can't do that with this kind of defense.
No. So, let me see. We've gone over hopefully what the lessons learned in this debacle were. What do they have to do to change the narrative against the Cleveland Browns, who actually are rolling into New Orleans with a better record than we have?
And we have a horrible record against the Browns. We haven't beaten the Browns in the Dome since 1990. And I was at that game. That's the first Steve Walsh game. Steve Walsh was traded to the Saints 2 weeks before that game.
From Dallas.
Yes, from Dallas. That's the Lawrence Welk trade. That's a 1 and a 2 and a 3. We gave up a 1 and 3 in 91 and gave up a second-round pick in 92 for Steve Walsh. And, that's the last time we beat him in the Dome was 1990. And the last time Sean Payton and Drew Brees had beaten the Browns was in 2006.
Opening day,
their first game together, because we lost to him in 2010. We lost to him in 14?
Yep.
And I think that was the last time we played him was 2014.
Yep. 3 years ago. 4 years ago, I mean.
Yeah, because we played him every 4 years, so that would be right. Yeah. And, in the 60s, we were in the same division as the Browns. And then in the 70s, the rotation was a lot more common that we would play the Browns a lot. So, yeah, we have a horrible record against them. The only time
I'm just hoping that they don't decide to start Baker Mayfield, because I'm having Washington Redskins flashbacks all over again.
Well, Tyrod. I just said thyroid and tyrod, combined to get that. But Taylor um, is the guy we beat in Buffalo.
Yep.
We know what he likes to do. He likes to throw the short stuff. And then he'll air it out deep once he gets you sucked up on the short stuff.
But we only played him for like, I want to say a half, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
When that was 2 years ago, I think. Played him early in the season in the dome, and he got injured. I want to say early in the game. Did he not?
No. He. Oh, no. You're thinking of EJ Manuel. No, I'm talking about last year when we played Buffalo. He was a starting quarterback last year,
and he got hurt.
No, he did. He played in that game. No, in the dome we knocked out EJ Manuel for a little while, but he played that game. They benched him the following week for Peterman or Peterson, not Peterman.
Peterman. You had it right the first time.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting Seinfeld flashbacks.
I'm telling you, dude. I feel bad. I really liked Nate Peterman coming out of Pittsburgh, and I saw this thing post up when I was trying to watch the Saints game. At one point Sunday, Nate Peterman threw an incomplete pass, and it increased his passer rating. That's how you know when you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
I feel
Buffalo.
bad
As I tell everybody, if we didn't have Drew Brees, we probably would have ended up like Buffalo against the Bucs. That was 47-0 or 47-3 or something like that. Yeah. That's that. If we would have had just an ordinary quarterback, that's the kind of game we probably would have had. Or Detroit. Detroit had what? I think somebody asked. I think NFL Memes had a thing. Who had the Saints defense and Matthew Stafford as their starting quarterback because they got negative points.
Yeah, tell me about it. The Saints defense got me -9 points. Now, that didn't stop the ass whipping that ensued. Thank you, Richie Perkins. But, yeah, the defense, to quote Robin Williams, it smoked a boo-boo in Hades. You have to have seen the movie The Survivors to get that.
Okay.
Anyway, that's absolutely one of Robin Williams' best works. I highly recommend it. The Survivors, starring him, Walter Matthau, Jerry Reed, and rest in peace, Burt Reynolds. I didn't want to forget that.
Wait, The Survivors with Jerry Reed and Burt Reynolds?
No, Jerry Reed, Walter Matthau, and Robin Williams.
Oh.
Jerry Reed played the bad guy. And he told him that he killed Jimmy Hoffa. And at the end of the movie, he says, well, nobody else took credit for it. I figured I would and increase my reputation.
1983.
Yep.
Good God. I've never heard of this movie.
You need to watch it. It is hilarious. Anyway, I think at least offensively, the things there wasn't a lot of negatives to find in the performance against Tampa. I didn't like a lot of the play calling, and as I said, I'm not into the whole apprehension towards using Alvin Kamara without Mark Ingram. The whole pitch count thing, I don't believe in that. That being said, you're going to have to find some sort of stability beyond Alvin Kamara in the backfield. Excuse me, were it me, at halftime, we would have let Gillislee and Williams clean out their locker and called Boston Scott and asked him to be there for the beginning of the fourth quarter. All jokes aside, I think Boston Scott has more than earned it. I really hope to see him brought up from the practice squad. I think that Boston Scott is going to – I don't see anything that Mike Gillislee, Jonathan Williams, or Tommy Lee Lewis, either of the three, which you can make a case for all three of them being on the active roster, having taken that spot that Boston Scott could have. I don't see anything that any of the three of them did that would make it okay for having put Boston Scott on the practice roster. I really don't.
I think they're intimidated by Boston Scott's height, which I don't know why they are, as not being a good enough power runner. But I thought he ran hard. I thought he broke tackles. I thought he got a lot of speed. I'd like to see Boston Scott in kickoffs,
Yeah.
And it still bothers me that I don't understand. I mean, I understand, but I don't understand. I understand why Brandon Tate didn't make the roster, and he didn't make the roster because he sucks as a receiver. He can only play as a returner, and he's not a very good special teams guy as far as tackling. He's just a returner. But you know what?
Exactly.
I want him in as a returner.
Multi-dimensional.
Tommy Lee Lewis can offer you something as a receiver. He did get some good return yards, but I really would like to get that threat that somebody could take the ball and go distance. And I think, having Boston Scott and Brandon Tate back there make me feel better on a return. In punt return especially, I would feel better with Brandon Tate back there returning the kicks. But, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, strictly as returners, I had it Tate, Scott, and then Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the big picture being the whole contribution that you're bringing to the table, I had Scott first because Scott contributes as a receiver, as a running back, running the ball, as a running back catching the ball, special teams, the whole 9 yards. I had Scott first in that, and still had Tommy Lee third.
Right.
The only, basically, in terms of what you're grading them on, the only thing that I had Tommy Lee graded out as best at was the fact that he had experienced the league for a year, and that's it. Nowadays, with things that changing and adapting at the rate that they do, I don't really put unless you're talking about a position like quarterback, maybe middle linebacker, I don't put that much credence in experience.
Well, I do, from the standpoint of the mental mistakes. They're not going to make the mental mistakes. You're not going to have a guy take the ball 3-5 yards deep into the end zone, start to come out, cross the line, and then decide, oh, you know what, I need to take a knee, and not make those kind of mental errors. Not look, the stuff that Reggie Bush used to do a lot that would scare the hell out of people. He would take his eyes off the ball to look at the rush coming downfield, the stuff that Tyrone Hughes has talked about in the past, where he knew where his lanes were. So you take your eyes off the ball and then look back up to get it, and all of a sudden the ball's moved and you muff it or whatever. So I get all those things. I just would like somebody who's actually proven they've done something to do it. And that's why I'm leaning more towards Brandon Tate and Boston Scott, because I think Boston Scott's size and so forth, he has shown that he's a good returner. I'm hoping he gets promoted to the regular roster. Give Jonathan Williams one more shot at it. If Williams can't get any yardage, give it to Scott, do the screen passes and things like that. Make Scott a threat like Ingram was a threat. Leave Kamara in the backfield. Let Scott now go out and split out wide and then start throwing the ball to Scott. We saw he could catch it. Let Scott go one-on-one against a linebacker. That's the kind of things I'd like to see happen. I want Pete to come back because I think the offensive line looks better with Pete in there. We were very right-handed last week. I'd like to see us run more to the left, and I think we'd be better running more to the left behind Pete and Armstead than Ramczyk and Warford. Ramczyk had some problems Sunday. Not major stuff, but he had some issues on the left side. He gave up some pressure on the left side. I thought Armstead played well the whole game. You get Pete and Armstead in there on that left side, you can run almost anybody behind those two.
Sure.
Pete gets to that next level and destroying people. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I'm hoping Pete can come back and play that game. Defensively, I think it's Robertson time. I think it's time for Robinson to be put into the linebacking. Craig Robertson. I think it's time for him to start in the linebacking core. I know there's a lot of people who want Davis to go to the middle linebacker spot because that's where he played with the Jets. And the Saints are trying to make him an outside linebacker because of his speed. I don't know if that works or not. I know they like Manti Te'o at the middle linebacker spot, but the problem with Manti Te'o is he is a 2-down linebacker. He's not a linebacker for pass coverage. I don't know if they are willing to move Davis back to the middle or not. Plus, I think the Jets played a version of a 3-4 defense last year, and he was more of an inside backer in a 34 kind of defense. I could be completely wrong. I don't remember. I don't follow the Jets, but I could swear I saw 2 inside linebackers with him. Regardless, I understand it, but I think I see the logic of the Saints by putting him on the weak side because you really have no other weak side linebacker. You don't have a real speed that knows what they're doing. Anzalone is showing to be a guy who's only played in 4 games. A lot of people are like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. That was his 3rd game, I think he started on this past Sunday. He lasted 2 games his rookie year before he got injured.
Yeah.
So he's on a learning curve. He has yet to play an entire season. So I understand the Saints' problems and trepidations with him. And he's the only other guy who can really play the weak side position. Robertson's going to give you some weak side stuff, but, Robertson's a try-hard guy who I love. I love the guy. I'm not knocking him, but I'm just talking about as far as raw talent, it is a step down. That's why he's a backup linebacker. But I do think it's time for him to come in because I think A.J. Klein's not the answer. Not the other side. I'd like to see Robertson and Davis right now as the 2 linebackers. Main 2 linebackers are always on the field.
I heard someone say something a long time ago, and people always say the things that are most profound to you are the ones that strike the closest to your heart. Someone told me one time that I forgot where I was going with that.
Okay.
It basically the gist of what I was trying to say is I don't know Mike, I don't know Will, I don't know Bob, I don't know any of that. I depend on Alan for the
Sam, not
Sam,
Bob.
Sam.
Will, Mike, and Sam.
I don't know any of the 3 of those guys. Never eat with them or anything. All I know is that if this coming Sunday I feel as though I want to regurgitate after I watch the Saints, I'm going to jab my eyes out where I can only listen to radio broadcasts from this point forward because in all honesty, and I take a little bit of sick pride in saying this, but after the game was over, one of the very first thoughts that went through my mind was, "Damn, Our show was a lot more fun than actually watching the game.
Well, it was. Hey, here's a bright spot though. A lot of people were ripping on Davenport. I liked what I saw Davenport out there. He made some mistakes, but it wasn't bad mistakes. At one point, he almost picked off a pass. I don't know if people remember that or not. He came around the edge, and it was one of those quick little flare-outs that Fitzpatrick was throwing to try and defeat the Saints pass rush. Where you take, 1, 2, 3, get rid of it. And he threw it on Davenport's side. And I just remarked to my wife, who was with me at the game, I said, boy, look at the size of Davenport compared to the rest of the guys in the defensive line. He looks like he's a good foot taller than everybody else. And he is that much taller. But when he put his arms up, I mean, that ball came right through his hands, and he more or less put his arms up almost like he was attempting to knock the ball down, and he had it almost in the catch position, and he could have caught it. And then, of course, the BS roughing the passer call, which the league came back and said today, you know what, they really shouldn't have called that. I'm sorry. I want a hat that says "Make Football Violent Again." A black hat that says "Make Football Violent Again," because I am tired of the explanation that when you tackle a quarterback and you put all your weight on a quarterback, now that's a penalty for roughing the passer.
No, you got it right. You got it right.
That's a penalty.
Go ahead and say felony. That
well, yeah,
like what
felony.
you were about to say.
Yeah, but it's a penalty for roughing the passer. Are you kidding me? If you listen to the old defensive linemen and stuff like that, they said they used to live to hear that quarterback give that, when you came down on them. We're a rule change away from the quarterbacks wearing red jerseys.
Yeah,
we really are.
I don't think that any of those penalties called, the two on Yamada, one maybe possibly sketchy, the other one complete bullshit.
And that was the one where they said he put his whole weight on the quarterback's body.
Yeah. That no.
And here's the thing. It's supposed to make the game safer. It's supposed to make the quarterbacks, supposed to make all the players healthier. What do we find out today? We found out on Sunday, Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and he played on a bad leg. Some people think it's a partially torn ACL. I don't believe that, but that's a speculation. But what else have we heard? We've now
partially
learned that
sprained vagina.
Well, we've heard that Neal is out for the season, safety for the Falcons. We heard that Deion Jones is out for at least 8 games. They're going to put him in recallable IR, which, if my math is correct, I'm not sure when the 2 weeks comes in, because I think they have to be out a full 8 weeks, and then they have a 2-week time where they could decide to activate him or not.
Yeah,
but that should put him in right around Thanksgiving. Starting with this week, 8 weeks later is week 10, and now you're looking at week 11, week 12. That's the 2-week period. Week 12 is Thanksgiving week. The Thanksgiving game against the Falcons. So we may or may not see him for both games. But Greg Olsen with the foot problem. We've got that defensive tackle for the Panthers. He's out with a knee injury. So are we really making this game safer? Now, granted, these aren't penalties for these guys, the injuries that's happening to these players, but still, you're trying so hard to make this game safe. And it's a game that's based on high-speed collisions. And to me, you get this is the way I was taught. When you think about pulling up, when you're trying not to get hurt by tensing up or whatever, that's when you're more likely to get hurt. And I just feel like the more they try and legislate this game to safe tackling and that kind of stuff, the more injuries that we're going to end up seeing happen. And that's just my feeling. That's why I'm like, well, I want my hat, make pro football violent again.
Well, if you get one, get two.
I'll tell you what. It pisses me off to no end because I'm old school. I mean, I'm Jack Tatum, Jack Lambert, Lawrence Taylor, Ricky Jackson, old school. Earl Campbell running through Isaiah Robertson. That kind of. I watched football in the '70s. Where I mean, they were killing people. That Tommy Myers would jump and launch himself through a guy because you listen to the Raiders Atkinson. He said, what you do is when you would go to tackle somebody, you want to go through your target. So you're trying to get on the other side of the person that you're hitting. So you're coming with that kind of force because if you hit them and it dislodges the ball, that's a good thing for you. And so you're trying to hit them with so much force that they let go of the ball because of the impact. Hey, that's the whole point of the game. And that's just, I know about the injuries. I know about Darryl Stingley. I know about, the old players that are walking with all the injuries, Earl Campbell can't walk anymore and all those things. I understand that. And I know about dementia and CTEs and things like that. And to me, that was more people using their equipment as weapons more than tackling with violence, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, it makes total sense.
If you leave your helmet and the idea is you want to spear somebody, that's stupidity. But if you hit somebody, you hit them as hard as you can to dislodge the ball. That's different. That because you watch Jack Lambert highlights, every one of his tackles is arms out, shoulder driven into the chest, wrap up, and then drive him into the turf. That was tackling. That's how tackling was done. Not this forearm and then just knock somebody and then stand back over him and watch it. No, I mean that's a bullshit ESPN highlight show shit that you see on TV. That's what happened. The form tackling went out the window, and it was all about that one. Throw that shoulder out, knock somebody.
Highlight reel.
Yeah, because you knock somebody off their feet. No. Watch. I'm telling you, anybody's watching the show, go YouTube Jack Lambert highlights and just watch him tackle and what he did. I mean, that guy was tackling people that weighed 10, 20, 30, 50 pounds more than he did. And it's all wrap up, put your shoulder into him, drive him into the dirt. And of course, Jack Lambert would stand over and point in their face, or push himself off of their face mask and things like that. But
yeah,
that's beside the point.
Yeah, well,
sorry, I got fired up there.
You reminded me of John Madden there for a minute.
Oh man, I'm telling you, you watch the highlights. I'm so thankful for NFL films. You watch the highlights of the 1970s and the way they played the game back then. Oh my God, you wouldn't even recognize the game today.
Yeah,
you wouldn't.
Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Not bad for a post-funeral edition of Under the Dome. Look, guys, it's real simple. Think back a year ago. After we played Minnesota the first time, Sam Bradford goes nuts and then goes missing. It's one game. There's 15 more. It's not exactly the most ideal way to begin the season, but let's not get off out on any high ledges. Let's just kind of sit back and trust the process. It's gonna be okay. I promise. I promise.
We're,
We
we're
want.
playing we're playing three beatable teams coming up. We're playing the Browns, who are beatable, the Falcons, who since they've just lost Neal and they lost Jones, that defense is beatable. You've already seen Drew Brees carve up the Bucs defense. I can't imagine struggling that much with the Falcons defense. It's just how our defense is going to play. And the Giants, same thing.
Yeah.
You have Odell Beckham coming to town and Barkley, the running back, but can the Giants defense really slow our offense down? I don't think they can. So we can still go 3-1, but the defense has to play to their ability. They cannot, like you said, come in and think they can just show up and teams are going to roll over. It's not going to work that way.
That was the one thing that was I think was the very most disappointing aspect of Sunday to me was the overall what word am I looking for? They left me feeling like, and I hate to use this word because of the negative connotations, but the arrogance that these guys walked out on the field and felt like, well, hey, we can turn it on just anytime we get ready to, and it's going to be there, and we're going to be just what we were in January of last, and it doesn't work that way, especially against a team that is highly, highly pissed off and motivated.
Yeah.
If you don't think that the Cleveland Browns are motivated, they've won 2 games in the last 2 seasons.
Well, it wasn't even a win. That's kiss your sister. That's a half a win.
No, I was talking about, 2 wins in the last 3 seasons. They tied last week.
Yeah.
You don't think they're motivated? You're barking up the wrong damn tree. It's like we've said on this show many a time. I don't care if you are the very worst at your position in the National Football League, you're still one of the 32 best in the world at what you do. And if you don't come to play every Sunday, you're going to get your ass beat.
Right. There is no Southwest Missouri Institute of Technology on your schedule. I mean, the Browns can give Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, pick your playoff team, all the hell in the world to try and beat. I'm talking about last year's Browns, not this year's Browns. So, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the sign of a young team that we saw Sunday was this thinking that, hey, we just got to make a couple plays and we got this. That can't happen. And we don't need another shootout. I know I said it was going to be more Breeze in these 4 games while Ingram's out. We don't need to have this offense score 40 points just to stay in a ball game. Our defense should be able to hold somebody to at least 20 points. And our offense can score enough points to put somebody away. So, yeah, we've got to win this game. This is a must win. And it's got to be – it's got to be a decisive win, too. This can't be one of those we pulled it out in the last second, a 3-point win, and our defense still played like crap. But Drew Brees, thank God, saved the game for us. We've got to play like a team that step on them early and keep your foot on their neck for 4 quarters.
I'll be honest with you. Right now, looking at that game Sunday, I'd take a 2-point conversion as time expired in overtime right now.
I know.
A W is still a W.
Yes, it is. It is. We just need a confidence builder.
I want
in our building.
I want the Cleveland Browns to wake up Monday morning and go, I'm hurting. What is that? That's my knee in your sphincter. I just want it to be that. It, like you said, it needs to be something. Given the way that this past week turned out, I'm not saying go out there and make a statement, but you need to, this being at home, you need to communicate to your supporters and your fan base that last week is not an example of what this team is about. I don't believe that. And the tagline for our show tonight, cuts like a knife. I'm a huge Bryan Adams fan, and as I was, I took my wife to work the other day, and my Bryan Adams CD is in the player, and I turn it on, and the first song that comes on is "Cuts Like a Knife," and the lyrics. This was like the day after the game, yesterday. The first line of the song: "Driving home this evening, could have sworn I had it all worked out. Had this boy believing way beyond a shadow of a doubt." And I thought, oh God, that has got to be the song for this week. It, but silver linings. We were in worse shape than this a year ago, because we were a year ago we were 0-1 and welcoming in the defending NFL champion, Super Bowl champions in the Patriots. The Browns are not the Patriots. Although I did predict Saturday night that the Browns would make the playoffs and the Patriots would not make the Super Bowl. Go back and Google that. And if that happens, we're just going to erase that one off of the.
If that happens, you buy my lottery tickets from now on.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, and our offense looked terrible in those opening two games too. We did not like the offense that we ended up looking like in that 8-game winning streak. But the problem is, I'm looking at the schedule. We can't afford. There is no point in the schedule where I can go, okay, we can make a run here of 8 games. I just don't see it. You've got Baltimore, who you've never beaten. Drew Brees has never beaten. In fact, the last Saints quarterback to beat Baltimore was Jake Delhomme. Aaron Brooks and Jake Delhomme back in 2003. I'm sorry, 2002. 2002. Minnesota, the Rams, the Bengals, and the Eagles. 3 of those teams are going to be the ones competing for that 1 and 2 seed. So in the NFC, it's just there is no point where we can make a run somewhere to come back from an 0-2 start. So that's why I said we've got to take care of business. Win this game in Cleveland. Beat Atlanta while they're down. Beat the Giants in New York. And then we can start the revenge tour with Washington and Baltimore. Because the Redskins, again, Peyton's only beaten those teams twice, and both times he had to pull the game out in the last minute. 2009, overtime. 2017. Yeah, both of them overtime. Both of them were overtime games.
Yeah. That was the Robert Meacham game.
Yeah. Meacham stole the ball. So,
once again, remind everyone, 1 week from tonight, we are going to have number 89, Quinn Early. My 9-year-old daughter said, do they call him that because he gets there before everyone else? And I got to thinking, I thought, if he wasn't a wide receiver, that probably wouldn't be as funny as it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know he scored 40 touchdowns for the Saints.
And research. His best years were with Jim Everett, too.
Yeah.
That was one of the best seasons.
That'll be next Tuesday night, 8 Central Standard Time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for joining us. Subscribe to us on iTunes and on YouTube. Alan, back to you, brother.
That's it. I mean, we'll see you next Sunday or next Tuesday after this Sunday's win against the Browns. We've got to reverse this bad luck we've had with the Browns. We've got to.
We sure didn't do anything to the opening day deal. So
No, I can still see Mike Dicker sprawled out across the Superdome floor with the Tim Couch Hail Mary. Drew Brees throwing 4 interceptions in 2010. Against the Browns. So I mean, it's just
I cannot tell you how many times that Kevin Harlan referred to the fact Sunday that the Saints haven't won an opening day ball game since 2011 or 2013 or whatever it was.
2013, yeah.
Just over and over and over. Sean Payton hasn't won a season opener since, and I'm like, yeah,
hey, man.
I can already see how this is gonna go.
The first, if I remember right, the first opening day win in Saints history is 1978 against the Minnesota Vikings. That's the first time the Saints won on opening day. And actually, that's a good game to point out. And I'm sorry, we're going way over time, but Tony Galbraith in that game had 14 receptions. I don't remember how many yards, but 14 receptions, and that was the record that Michael Thomas broke on Sunday with 16 receptions. Now, he had 180-something yards receiving. Wes Chandler still holds the record, single-game record for the Saints. A year later, 1979, against the Falcons, Wes Chandler hit 205 yards receiving, and that's still the highest total for any Saints receiver in a single game in franchise history. So there's a target for you, Michael. I'd love for you to get one day this season, get 210 yards receiving. And, I'm not even playing fantasy football anymore. I just like to see your name all over the records, all over the record book.
And I can't think of a better Sunday than for him to do it than
there we go.
This Sunday.
Yep.
I would rather it be Alvin Kamara.
Absolutely.
Because I am playing fantasy football and Alvin Kamara is on my team, so I would much rather.
205 yards receiving for a running back, that'd be pretty damn impressive. But yeah.
Hey, I can handle it as long as they can.
There you go.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.